Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody just real quick, it doesn't have to speak, you can speak up and aim your voice at the speaker in front of Dan. That'll be helpful for the people on the Zoom.
Okay, very good. So first thing we're going to do tonight is we have representatives from Delaware Solar and Bergman. And I'm going to turn it over to you. Go.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for the time. My name is Dan Capitello. I'm a local developer with Delaware River Solar, and it's going to be back in Alfred from Rochester, and spend some time here in the past. We are, I believe we want to have Alyssa Nielsen on the phone with us tonight too. She attended the last meeting with Peter Bildes representing the project. Here's going to be Kathleen Connolly as well, and Dave Plant. Maybe on the call with us tonight. Or, yes. Oh, there it is. So we're here just to follow up.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, thanks.
Here just to follow up on the last meeting, which I think was a introductory discussion for the project. And I've been following it all along. I just wasn't able to meet that last meeting. So we have responded to the questions that Knockshop provided to us in Bergman, and we just submitted those, another set of those questions just yesterday to the town board. Has everyone received those responses?
It's in your packet.
Okay. So there'll be a letter dated via email July 7th, 2021. And I think this essentially sort of
July 1st.
First.
I don't have the one from the 7th.
okay,
This just came FedEx today, the one dated July 1st.
July 1st, okay.
Just the most recent one that I have.
Okay, well, there are only two other follow-up questions on the July 7th responses. Everything that you have from the first, I think we were just following up on two other questions from that. Those questions on July 1st. So I think tonight we'd like to see if the town board is ready to take action on seeker to get that process started. And also make referral to the county for the 200 municipal review project.
Okay.
And if there are any other questions that you have.
I think what we want to do, I discussed this at length with Dwight from Knopf and also with Kathy Spencer from Labella. And in terms of the seeker, the environmental assessment form, I think we agreed that we would be willing to assume agency status on that, the lead status on that. As far as the application, we're not in a position to approve that yet for a couple of reasons. One, we do want you to do the visual site, line of sight assessment, which you had requested relief from. And also our engineers, Cabela or Labella, hasn't had an opportunity to review the application yet. And so we want to get their input before we make a decision on that.
Oh, sure.
So I think that represents what we had all discussed.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I think that we would need, we'll move a motion that we resolve to take lead agency status on the seeker. And I think that's as much business as we'll do tonight for the project. Are you okay with that?
I think is the town ready to refer it to county at this point?
Actually, I don't know.
I don't think you're in that position yet, Dan, where
If that application hasn't been deemed complete yet, we don't have a full application that's complete. You should have a resolution that's like provided for your intent to be lead agency and seeker.
Right, and we do have that. Should be in, do we have it in everyone's packet? Okay.
In the first, that first part with the three pieces.
Mhm. Okay, next to the last one. Okay, guess we can just have a motion to adopt this resolution that you have written in your packet. All right, to become the lead agency for the seeker. So I'm going to move that we adopt this resolution to become the lead agency for the seeker. Is there a second? Thank you, Wendy. Discussion?
Hey, Dan. Dan, hi, it's Kathy Spencer.
Yes, you're here in volume.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify for the board that the resolution resolves that you intend to be the lead agency and that the environmental assessment form will be circulated to other agencies for 30 days. And then you will actually declare yourself lead agency after you've gotten through that mandatory 30-day comment period. Just a small clarification.
Okay, no, that's good. I appreciate that. And I presume this resolution states that clearly, right?
Yes, it does.
So if I'd read this carefully, I would have known that.
No, it's like a one-word thing. The word intend is in the resolution, intend.
Okay. Okay, good. Any other comments on this? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so that is taken care of.
Can I have a follow-up?
Yes.
Kathy, on Labella's end, are you gonna handle the coordinated, review? For all of the?
Yes, I spoke to Dwight Kaniak. He is actually going to circulate the Part 1 EAF to the involved and interested agencies. Labella will be preparing parts 2 and 3. And I'm sure I'll be in touch to just get some a better understanding of the information in the form. I've seen some emails between you and Dwight. So I'm sure we'll be talking at some point.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, do we have any? Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one comment.
Yes.
We're also going to need the developer to provide a link that we can add to that letter, so that application can be reviewed by the board sending it to through a link.
Can you clarify that?
So the application itself, we're going to ask for that.
Oh, okay.
Or they can view it electronically. So if you could just add a link, we'll send you a letter, add a link to that we can provide, so we don't have to mail out. Whatever that is.
Okay, any other comments on the DRS project this evening?
I have a question,
Yes.
and that would be, what is the opportunity for other reviewers to submit during this filling out of Part 2 of the seeker form, to submit comments and observations? That would be to you, Kathy.
So the way the seeker process works is under law, it's the responsibility of the town board to fill out the Part 2 and 3. Naturally, as their environmental consultants, we will be preparing drafts for consideration by the town board, and we can have discussions about how questions are answered. We can answer questions together and discuss various impacts. But the town board I guess one thing to clarify your question, there is no public hearing required at this point during seeker. Only if an environmental impact statement it ends up being necessary during the process. However, any resident of the town can express concerns to the town board members or, send emails, and that information would then be sent to Labella, and we would take that into consideration during the environmental review.
Okay, well, you may not know who I am, but I'm a member of the town planning board. And I'm retired from a profession where I've had a lot of experience with seeker. And I have some observations that I want to make sure that the Labella engineers are aware of. One of the points is the need for a further hydrologic review and the stormwater prevention plan. I don't believe that we can have a fair assessment under seeker without knowing more specifics about the hydrology of how the water's coming off the site and the receiving bodies that it's being pumped into. Another point is the stray voltage that in my research comes off from the panels can indeed affect gas lines in terms of the rate at which they corrode. It can also gather and represent an interference to nearby homes. And we have a daycare center very close by. And I just want to make sure that the issue and the regulations that control that are going to be met fully. And we need more information about how they're going to meet the regulations with certain electromagnetic characteristics. And I'm not sure that your engineers are tuned to that.
Well, let me answer that in a couple ways. As you may know, Labella was just, our contract with the town was just signed. So we're just getting the materials into the right engineer. We're going to be doing engineering review as well as environmental review. I took notes on your 3 issues, but what I would suggest to you is that you present your concerns formally to the town board, which will then send them to me. I mean, I don't know how formal you want to run things in the town of Alfred. You could just send them to me, but really the town board is the lead agency responsible for the environmental review under seeker. So if we wanted to proceed very formally, you could send an email to Dan and Dan could send it on to me. I also, at the request of the town board, I did ask Steve Longway, our senior electrical engineer and a vice president at Labella, to be with us tonight. He's here to try to address questions you may have on the electrical aspects of solar power and air your concerns. Again, I would defer to Dan as to when if he wants to get those questions aired and answered now or at a later point. But Steve Longway is on the Zoom meeting, as maybe you can see on your computer.
I see Steve, yes.
Yeah, has that information been conveyed to Steve?
I did give Steve and I had several discussions and email communications. I gave him a sense of the type of questions that we might expect tonight, but he is quite knowledgeable in all things electrical and solar, and I think he can handle any question that's thrown at him tonight. If you would like the town board to hear the responses and any members of the public that are there.
Well, I think it's a lengthy discussion, and I've gleaned some research papers that I would like to submit to you Kathy and Steve. But for the most part, to keep it simple and short, I have extreme concerns about stray voltage. The facility has the capacity to produce over 6 megawatts of power, but legally they'll only be entering 4.88 into the system. What happens to the rest of the voltage? How is it grounded, and will it impact the surrounding area? There is history of it influencing grazing animals, humans in their homes, etc. I'm also very concerned about dirty electricity, harmonics. And it is, the history is that these facilities, the inverters specifically, unless they are properly configured, and unless they go the extra mile and put the filters and the precautionary electronics in place, they will feed dirty electricity to the system. Now, I also have a paper, which is kind of a analysis of another facility, which talks about that, and it identifies specifically the things that need to have to happen in order for the inverters to be clean. And I would like to see, instead of the applicant just saying, we're going to meet all the required regulations. I've run into that before. I'd like to see them identify the specific regulations that are in play with a few of these issues, and then see them actually identify how they're addressing it. Instead of saying, well, we're just going to meet all of the regulations. Well, you know, our power line is chock full of dirty electricity already. I live within a stone's throw of this facility, and I have put a filter on my home to filter and treat the electricity that's coming into my home from the system. That's how I know this. But the bottom line is that I just want to be in the pipeline. I am requesting of the town board to allow me to have input, and I will funnel it through Dan to you, if that is his decision. But I'm not going to assume, I'm not going to assume that you, as the engineering consultant, or that the applicant are going to be up on these issues. And that serves the stormwater also. There is absolutely no mention in their application about extreme drought conditions where runoff comes off of dry ground because it's chock full of air faster, or frozen ground, which we have a lot of here. There's no mention of that. There has to be hydrology and a detailed analysis done for you to know that it's not going to overtax the high gradient stream coming down into the village. Okay, so these are just refinements in terms of, in order for us to do a negative deck on the seeker process, we need more information.
Okay, so what I would suggest, Fred, if you want to forward to me all of the data that you have available.
I have sent you the articles already.
Okay, well, do I have them in one concise file, or are they all?
Yes,
separate
there's 2 different files attached to a very short email that can be forwarded very easily.
All right, then I will forward those, and then we'll wait for Labella to get a response back to you and to the board. Does that sound reasonable to everyone?
It does to me, but I do have Steve Longway here if you would like him to answer some questions in live session.
I think.
Well, I'd like to hear from Steve just briefly.
Okay.
If he's aware of the issues that I'm talking about, and if you're prepared to look at them in depth.
Well, if I may, certainly we've talked about many of these topics before. Just a little background on me. I've been practicing for 20 plus years. For the last 10 years, I've been pretty heavily involved with the utilities and with solar projects from both sides. So I work with the utilities to help them evaluate applications. I work with developers to help them submit applications. So I get a pretty wide perspective. I mean, I've definitely been involved with the system engineers from the utilities looking at the impacts of solar on their grids. And we're reviewers for these applications for the utilities in some cases. So speaking to the power quality, IEEE 1547, I may be screwing up the number, but there's an IEEE standard that all the inverters are required to meet. It's like checkbox number 1 on the application. They have pretty stringent power quality requirements for those inverters already. On top of that, the utility also screens for voltage fluctuations and the ability of the system to react. One thing I'm sure you've heard, we distributed generation essentially puts generation on an area of the grid that it was never intended to be. So we're kind of feeding backwards into the grid. So by doing that, it taxes the regulation, and that's simply voltage. So you get voltage swings when the generation picks up, and when clouds go by, the generation drops, the system voltage drops as well. So there is voltage swings. Now we have to accommodate for that, either as the designer or as the utility. Typically that's handled with capacitors and inductors. Occasionally when we get to a spot where typical caps or inductors don't do the job, the utility will require digital voltage regulation. It can get to the point of some pretty expensive regulation systems, active compensation. So, but at the end of the day, the utility is responsible to make sure that what's coming to its customers is within the guidelines that they're required to meet. That includes harmonics, that includes sags and swells. They're ultimately responsible for the line. Does that mean that objectionable things can't happen on the line? No. It's not just generation sites. Industrial sites have the same problem. If you've got a ton of VFDs and a manufacturing process and a lot of start stops, they can create just as many problems as a solar project. So to your, I won't disagree with you that these do have the potential to create problems, but ultimately, a lot of things have to go wrong before that gets to you, right? The utilities have to miss it. And ultimately, if there's significant problems on the line, people will bring it to the utility's attention. The utilities do have teams that go out and do monitoring when these issues are brought up. And, they can put a harmonic analyzer on the line, see what's going on. They'll record it for 30 days. And then they have to take action on it. I mean, ultimately, they have the power to turn off a generator that's misbehaving.
I thank you for that. And it's exactly what I'm getting at. That type of discussion and clarity needs to be presented as part of the application or at least as part of the seeker process, so that people that come to us or in my own mind, I can resolve those questions. And I can advise the town board, yes, issue a negative deck, or issue a negative deck with a condition negative deck with this condition that this is looked at or controlled. Another issue that I'd like for you to look at is the communications. And evidently there is going to be a lot of data transfer from this system to, I imagine, the control spot at the transfer station or somewhere else. If you can hardwire that into the cable, which runs right by the site, that would be optimum. Microwave, Wi-Fi kind of installations right next to these buildings, right behind these buildings, that's another issue. So if you can address that what is the communications going to be?
Well, I think that should be an easy one to answer. I can't speak for Delaware River Solar, but typically the monitoring for these systems is very low bandwidth. So they do often, on a remote site, do cellular communications for their SCADA data. It's a data acquisition system. It basically, it checks the status of the plant. If there's any weather data, it passes that along. If there's any equipment failures, it passes that along. But even on very, very large sites, and I mean 20 to 100 megawatt sites, that's maybe a 10 megabyte per second internet connection. So I mean, nothing higher than residential broadband service. On a typical 5 megawatt site, it's much less than that. But Delaware River would have to comment on what they're planning for their interconnection here. Can certainly be done over a local data connection.
Okay, so we just need to
Comment
have
on that
that
as
part
well.
of the understanding also.
Go ahead, Dan.
Sure, I can comment directly on that question. There's sometimes just a plain old telephone on POT, called POTS.
Yeah.
Plain old telephone service is what we connect, or we can use Wi-Fi or wireless service in the area. And depends on what's most available, what's most reliable. We have, in some cases, both installations set at the same time. It'll be no different from the cell phones that are in this room right now, communicating with us and the utility in real time, or the telephone hardwired to the one that's at the town hall right now. An open line always open to our GDR.
Okay, that's, thank you for the time with the town board. And thank you, Steve and Kathy. I'm looking forward to working within the system of review. And
Another comment as well, just on this last point that we'll discuss too, and I think it is, I appreciate the discussion here, and we've developed over 400 megawatts of projects like this, so a good amount of this project across the state. It's rare that we get into this level of detail. Actually, this is probably the second meeting I've ever been to where this level of detail has been discussed. Regarding site plan review or special permit. But we do get into a very high level of detail here with our engineers. Lavella does represent, in this case, the town, but they do a good amount of work with our community. We don't work with Lavella in that way. We often see them on the other side of the table representing the town. But in this case, our engineer and our in-house engineers that design these systems do all that coordination with our GE. And so the regulations of the quality of our power and the safety of it is something that we have to maintain to be able to work with our GE. They do have the ability to shut our system down at any moment if that power is not getting on the line in the way that it needs to be, the way that they are requiring it to be put into their system. They do monitor it in real time, just as we do, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, or 366 if it's a leap year. So we do a lot of that work. It really does not come into a site plan question because of the standards that our GE needs to meet, that site needs to meet in order to meet their good utility practice standards. And those terms are capitalized, good utility practice. Every utility in the state, NYSEG, RG&E, Con Edison, National Grid, they're all regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They have to meet very strict standards, and we have to work within those standards, maintain those standards in order to be able to work with them. So that's something we take very seriously. We're happy to provide, any answers to the questions that you have, Fred. And we obviously feel a good amount of trust relying on Lavella to verify those answers or provide them with answers as well.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yeah. Matthew.
This is the response to the questions, the date of July 1st that we received via FedEx. On the visual impact assessment, the response said, the only landowners who have a direct line of sight to the project are the landowners of the parcel subject to this application. Which is absolutely false. I can show you a picture from my house. And I can see the whole field on Snyder Road.
Okay.
1349 Snyder Road.
Okay.
So from Snyder Road, it's a direct line of sight. You can actually see my house right there up in the corner, yep.
And I think we discussed this a little bit last time, is that there was a concern about potentially some of these other higher elevations.
Right. Yeah.
So, do you mind if I add on a question to this?
No.
Okay, so since we are gonna do the visual simulation, and it's been requested, I just wanted to verify that we do get obviously documentation, that is concerned. So I know of, like, the
Yeah, so it's,
development that's up in here is a
Yep.
concern.
Yep.
So we'll make sure that we get,
it's really just down from where you're at.
like this.
Yeah, so the road that comes, yep, that road coming all the way down. So there's a house, yep, right where your pen is.
Okay.
Yep, and then the next couple houses down that road. Yep.
Okay.
How about the houses further up Jericho
I
Hill?
think some of the ones further up Jericho Hill look directly down on it also. So they'd be kind of off the bottom corner of the map down there,
Yeah,
yeah,
going up the hill.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I should have thought of spreader.
That's fine.
Spreader writing utensils so that, you can all see this, but just where I'm marking is, making sure that we get some documentation.
Yeah, actually, I think I was wrong. That's right on Jericho. So it's probably just off the side of the map there.
Okay, like
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was misviewing that correctly. So it's basically Snyder Road and the upper sections of Jericho Hill.
Okay, so that's the main area.
Yeah, they're the only
Okay.
two areas. But just because it is said that nobody else has a direct line of sight, that there are at least 4, if not 6 to 10 residences that look right down on it.
Right, so we'll make sure that, in our visual simulation, then we get quite a few different views. It seems like one over here likely, one or two off of Jericho Road right here.
Yeah,
and one
and-
more southern.
You guys are correct that pretty much all of Jericho right adjacent is wooded.
Mhm.
You can't see through there with the possible exception of up the driveway itself. But when you come farther up the hill, you can down on it.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. We'll definitely do a visual simulation so we can, see if there's going to be concern there.
Thank you.
And then, just, were there any other points of concern too? Just to make sure that we include.
I'm not aware of any.
The details will come about from the visual impact assessment, will they be provided for review during all the time? How is that information passed along to the concerned parties?
That would be, something we would provide, probably by the next meeting. That would be met. And then that would be part of the, there will have to be public hearing set procedures, so that can be part of, provided publicly before that, public hearing.
Okay. Any other points to bring up on this project at this time? I think this has been a useful discussion for all of us. Okay, I think if not, we'll move on to some routine matters of business. Thank you. You guys are welcome to stay, but thanks for coming. Okay, I'm going to,
Sorry, can we have
Yes.
one question, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
Good about a question about the town's process for review, and I think some of it was hinted at tonight, but just so we're clear, the town will declare intent to be lead agent under seeker, assuming, and it's usually always the case that if you're declared lead agent, you become lead agent. So the town board would be issuing the special permit for the project, and the planning board will be.
the ZBA would be issuing the special use permit for the project.
The
Zoning Board
Zoning Board.
of Appeals, right, and the town would be handling the secret.
Oh, I see, okay. So you would be making a referral to the ZBA essentially to recommend approval of the special permit.
We would be providing the information to for the special use permit to the ZBA, and they'd make their own decisions, but I assume that they're gonna be essentially doing what we're doing, in other words, using the same data to make their decision. I believe that's,
They would be using your EAF as well as the results of the seeker study that the town does. And then balancing both, they would make their decision whether fall within the criteria of the special use.
but we would not be making a recommendation to them. We would simply be providing that information to them.
Okay. All right, in instances like that, where there are multiple boards, in this case, I believe all three of the town boards, town board, zoning board, and planning board. For consistency purposes, it may be good to have a representative from each board present at each meeting. Just so that there is not information lost throughout the process. Normally, a special permit and a site plan review are issued by the same board, but in this case, that's different. We would just like to see if that's possible.
Yeah, we can do that. No, I don't think the planning board's gonna play a role in this, right?
This is advisory to the town board.
Right, okay, well, you're here anyway. Okay, and as far as the chairman of the ZBA, I'm sure we can get ready to attend.
And he's been copied on all the information that comes in, it's forwarded to him as well.
Great,
Right, and so we'll do that, and that's good recommendation.
okay.
So sorry, just to clarify, so are the reviews gonna occur in person or after, obviously, I know you all are providing site plan review or this kind of approval, and then we will be issuing a special use permit. So will there be a separate meeting after, say, we get approval?
Right, no,
of this
essentially,
proposal?
essentially a 1 week delay because the ZBA meets on the third Thursday of the month.
Okay.
So essentially, that would be the nature of the timing.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, sure.
All right, well, and I guess in closing, we're really excited to be moving forward with the project. And especially one of our construction managers who is a graduate of Alfred from their electrical engineering program and our electrical trades program. He's actually one of our construction managers now. And he's hopeful if we can start construction next spring, we would
Bring him in.
working on this. And
Okay, good.
he could get some legal, he's actually come back to teach at Alfred. We'd like to invite the school in somehow and, you know, incorporate that into the curriculum.
Good. Sounds good.
All right, everyone. Thanks a
Okay,
lot. for your time.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
See you all again.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Sean. Okay. Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, everyone. I was glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for zooming in, and thanks to Steve as well.
Have a good night.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Good night. Okay, routine items, yes.
From our punch list here, do we need to resolve anything from this matter?
Thank you. Yeah.
The two agreements?
Okay, so the last two bullet points, let's just get, I've already signed the agreement with Labella and I've signed the agreement with DRS. I just want to make sure those are in the minutes. So I'm going to move that we, I thought they were in the minutes, honestly, let's put that in there. That we contract with DRS for their engineering, and legal services, and that we also contract with Labella for professional engineering services. And I get a second to that. I'll second it, Dan. Thank you, Bill. Is there a discussion? All in favor, say aye. 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 Okay, thank you. I think that takes care of our checklist, right, Dan?
Looks like it.
I've got to ask it's out of order, but I don't think I know you.
Jim Heckman, Alfred University.
Hi, Tim. Good for you. Okay,
Okay.
okay. All right, well, let's go to Tim, since you're here as a guest. What's on your mind?
Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Jim Heckman. I'm the Assistant Director of Facilities at Alfred University. Alfred University is up on Jericho Hill with our sports fields, and we have a cross-country track. And so I've got a little bit of a map here. Sorry, I didn't bring out a copy for everybody, and I've got the application you asked for.
Okay.
So basically, what I'd like to do, or what the university would like to do, is we were awarded a grant from the Ralph Wilson Foundation. The Ralph Wilson Foundation provides a grant to universities, to communities, to townships, to others that to provide walking space and exercise areas for communities. The community that in this case with Alfred University, we allow the community to use our facilities to exercise, to stay healthy, and it's a health, kind of a wellness program, if you will, right? So myself, Paul Vecchio, and Jason Amore had put this together, and we have a really nice cross-country track up there. I don't know if you have to walk it, or but we've been developing. Roger McGraw's been working with us over the years. So I've been here 3 years, and over these years, we've been really putting a lot of grass seed, topsoil, making sure that it's a safe, good quality walk program, or walking our cross-country track. With this grant, we'd like to put a path through the woods, okay? I do a little map. Land survey. So I drew up, I put the cross-country course on here. And as you'll see on this, there's a path that will connect, that'll connect through the woods. So part of the Ralph Wilson.
What's there already? What's already there?
So this is all here right now. This is all our cross-country track for our competition. This is, yeah, right. And this is Kenyon, I don't know.
So the dark lines outlining that are.
That dark line right here, this is outlining our cross-country track, our current cross-country track that's in there now.
Okay,
So what we're looking to do is create a path through the woods, which is 7 to 8 feet wide. So there'll be some buildup material, some gravel, so that you can walk on without getting your feet wet and that kind of thing.
mhm.
And just connect these. So this will be used not only to help, because anybody can walk on this right now and hike and bike, but we're going to create a path so that you can create additional, about 1,200 feet of additional paths.
Where's the proposed stadium in the future someday?
Someday that would be, if there was going to be one, it would be right in here.
Well, that's another issue.
That's
Yeah.
another
I
animal
was just,
altogether.
I just looking at it, I knew where that was, so now I understand.
Yeah, this out here is where the original back in, see if I got the numbers right. I believe it was 1963, 68, somewhere in that neck of the woods that they created this cinder track. And then there was there were some softball, baseball fields that were created here. But they did their track and field there. Obviously, because there's no opportunities for it downtown. So
These are the back practice fields?
yeah, that's just the back football practice field right now.
Okay.
So there was, this right here is just kind of where the path comes around on the north side of the field, but the actual field is like right here. So we have a really nice cross-country track. We'd like to incorporate this little walk path, which again is just gonna be a gravel path, kind of sneaking in around the trees so that they get a walk through the woods effect, which is kind of like, what they're looking to gain is give people a really quality, safe access through that area.
Is there any lighting there?
No.
Lighting, okay.
No lighting, no power, no,
There's lighting around.
there is, but that's been there, that's existing. And that has nothing to do with this path, because those are only used when we have football practice. But they do that now down on the stadium down below, more and less up there.
Okay,
So your answer was you're not, this path through the woods isn't going to be lighted,
Oh, no.
just so we're all in this,
It's just instead of walking through the muck,
got it.
we're walking on like a gravel path.
okay,
So that's really all it is.
okay.
I didn't use the road.
Pardon?
Why didn't you use the road that runs out in there and goes to that football practice field?
We do. We use the road right now, like this part of the path on the, which would ultimately be the south end of that field, is right adjacent to the road. And when our cross-country runners are running, they got these little tiny spikes that are like needles in the bottom of their shoes, so they don't, we try not to have them run on a gravel road. But this road right here, this path is right adjacent to that road. So everything is pretty much, for the most part, it's all, it's gravel with topsoil. So that it has the ability to drain and where it's not mucky and muddy. And then it's also stiff enough for these runners to run. It's actually quite a very nice competitive cross-country course. It's cleaned up very well. We maintain it. My landscapers and groundskeepers will maintain, keep everything clean. I don't know if you've noticed your help, but I think it's very well maintained as far as the view from the road. And
How long is the cross-country track?
that's a very good question. Yeah, I can't answer. I should have had that answer, but I can tell you this, that this is roughly 1,200 feet.
Okay,
But I'm sorry, I can't answer.
that's
that.
no big deal, yeah. Okay, so I think what happens here, you gave us a site plan, you have.
Yeah, they had a packet that I'll turn over to you,
Okay.
that you asked for. And, try to give you some insight on.
Just minor clearing to make the.
Yeah, we contracted with, pending this approval, we contracted with Roger, and he's basically gonna dodge in and out of trees. It's not gonna be like a straight, but it'll be something that'll be, there may be some small ones that he has to move out, but for the most part, we've walked it numerous times and we've laid out with flags how this thing goes, so it's a really clean transition. This down here is a lot of overgrowth with, brushier area, and this is more like hardwoods.
Right.
So if you notice, we're coming in on this thinner part where it's not quite as thick. And then this will clean this up right down through here. And again, tie back into it, so we can use it.
They'll tie in, so it could be a loop here or a loop.
Right, within that cross-country course, they could say, okay, for round one, for instance, they're gonna run this course. And then maybe round two, they run through that as well. So,
Okay, any questions for Tim? I think following our newly constructed flow chart, that what happens is this information goes to the code enforcement officer, who would be in a position to issue the building permit. Is my interpretation correct?
Excuse me, Dan, may I speak? This is Becky Graves.
Becky Graves, please.
I think I've spoken to you before that I thought there was designated wetlands up there. Is that something that you can do all this work with and not bother it? Or I just wonder about it.
Again, Becky, I didn't understand.
That the DEC marked some of that as designated wetlands. I just wondered if the wetlands, the track and path and everything is adhering to what, respecting the wetlands.
Okay, so from the town's point of view, that's outside of our purview, but I did mention to Paul Vecchio that there are some regulations For example, if you disturb more than an acre of ground, you have to get the blessing of the DEC. I don't know, I've not seen that documentation, but I passed that along to Paul to check into. But that's outside the purview of the town zoning for building.
Okay.
Regulation.
So they'd be like requesting an environmental impact
No, I don't know.
report. Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you have any input in that.
No, as far as I did the research on the wetland study, we don't have the wetland designations. And so I don't have anything other than what we have on that map, but they do. I mean, as far as I did fill out your request that you asked me for.
Okay.
So that's filled out and the answers are all answered. I mean. Yeah, I did a zoning application. I'm sorry I didn't do the building permit. Because I started to, I couldn't answer any of the questions.
Well, I don't know. Well, see,
Dan, I have a question.
building permit to build a building, or is it building permit to build something?
So I included that in here, but I didn't answer. the
Okay.
question. So I just wanted to clarify that. Like, I tried to.
All you need is a zoning permit then.
So I filled out the zoning and the secret and. That's it.
Okay, and we have a site map, yeah. And I think the procedure is that goes to the code enforcement officer.
Yes,
Then
that's
we'll,
what, yeah.
issue. Well, I guess they would just approve it.
Dan, I have a question.
Catherine?
Yes, Catherine Chambers here. So all the work that's been done in the last couple of weeks, there is a drain pipe going from, like if you pull into the AU driveway and the AU building is on your right, they've installed a drain pipe running from behind that building. And I don't know who owns the property, but it's close to Jude's property. So there's a drain pipe running from that property over to the athletic field side of the property, kind of close to the road that you've built, or the trail that you've built back there already. So how long will that be in place?
Well, what we did is we cleaned up that drainage coming from the back of the property. We cleaned that ditch out along the road to get that to drain properly. And that's really all we've created, other than installing that one, the one drainage pipe you're referencing. We installed that in order to, there's a lot of muck that was in that ditch.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually been like 3 or 4 drainage pipes installed. That's just the only one I had a question about. There's drainage pipes back where the wetland was marked earlier. And there's like a road been built. And I think you explained that was your trail. But I was just wondering how long that was going to be in place from that other property going across. It looks like you're draining the wetland into the athletic field, which is then running into the ditch that you built, that you excavated, and then running down the opposite side of Kenyon Road through Dick Lang and Becky Graves's ditch.
Yes, that ditch that goes north to, well, yeah, from north to south along the driveway coming into Jericho Hill, that ditch we cleaned that out, and it's a real slow grade. And we went all the way back to the back corner where that pipe is.
Right.
Clearing that out. And that trail that you referenced, that's that cross-country trail. So what we had, and what we did is we got away from the edge of the property and we went over to that closer, or to the inside of those woods, not inside, but to the edge of them. So that's that cross-country trail that's drawn on this map. The cross-country track, or course.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And-
Thank you.
What Catherine mentioned about draining off of the playing field, that drains down by my driveway and across Richard Lang's property down into the protected wetlands at the bottom of Kenyon Road along 21.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's been draining, that's what we did is, because it's been doing that, it's been there since I've been here, but we cleaned that up so that it works properly.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments on this topic? Okay, Tim, thanks for coming. You're gonna leave that stuff here.
Just tuck this way in here and then I'll see it for you.
And we'll see that the code enforcement gets that. and-
Sure. Is there a timeline on when this we
Well,
might
he
be able
should get
to?
it first of the week when he's in, right?
Yeah, I talked to Steve today and he'll be in next week. He wasn't here Monday, but I wasn't, so.
Right. Okay, so you should hear something first of the week.
Well, we're good.
I just fits in there, I had it in there.
Just Right on top.
So let me show you this. Must have filled it out twice.
For those trails currently for foot traffic only, or is biking allowed?
No, biking is encouraged.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, it's. Kind of like, but.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely correct.
Human powers.
No, I know because we got a lot of students who,
Do you have anything in place to prevent motorbikes and four-wheelers, or do you just depend on the neighbors to call? Please if that happens.
no, we really don't have anything to prevent that. I mean, other than our public safety patrols, because I would be very upset if that was to happen. We got a lot of money in those things, but no, we can post it by all means. Absolutely. It's probably a good idea. I really, the kids, sometimes these kids are crazy, but they go out there and they spin around. I don't know if you probably know about it over the years, but they go out there and they spin around by the football field, Matt. So then we get after them and then they find out who it is. And one of the things Alfred University is doing is we've gotten additional monies. We're putting the cameras all over the campus. And I don't know if there's one going to go up there, but I mean, obviously we'd love to catch somebody in their mess. Oh my gosh.
I don't know if it would make sense for this, but the trail down in Hornell,
I saw,
that runs alongside the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
Every, I don't know, 500 yards or so, they have steel bollards.
Yeah.
So that if you're on a bike, it's just wide enough, you can ride a bike through without stopping. But you can never run a four-wheeler up through there.
I know, I
I
saw
don't know
that.
if it'd be worth putting, one of those on each end, just so that someone doesn't come tearing through there.
Protect your investment.
I
Yeah,
guess I have you in duplicate here because everything's doubled.
Okay.
I guess that's good, right? But anyway, yeah, that's a good idea. With the cross-country track, I mean, other than like blocking off the driveway or something, we really didn't want to gate it because then you're kind of telling everybody not to use it. And I don't think that's right, but I think it, to your point, I think it's a great point. I think it falls on Alfred University to be good stewards of that property, right? To make sure that we don't get people out there raising Cain and I would be happy to put that proposal. I mean, I'll have my public safety teams go up there and monitor it a lot more. In fact, when the students get back, they do a route that's part of their patrol, if you will. That's a good point. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's really nice. I mean, we spent a lot of time and effort to get that, to make it safe and somebody won't twist their ankle, and get into the mud and all that stuff. So, and there's parking, so they could be parking out back or parking outside in the front. But, we get a good number of little, student or residents that go up there and walk their dogs and such. Plus we do our experiments.
Thanks for coming in, Tim.
All right, no, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
Good luck with you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're two walking trail options, so top of that hill and then on Park. I guess they're doing a similar thing at home.
Yeah, I guess so. I haven't heard all this.
Ralph Wilson Foundation.
Is that-
It's the Ralph Wilson Foundation. I assume from, well, I assume from the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's a zoning permit, the EAF and the site plan.
Yes.
now. Well, they've already moved dirt. They've done drainage. So they violated the laws or ignored them. So is it better to ask for forgiveness than permission?
And how much of that was maintenance versus installation?
Maintenance, my ear, go up and look at it. They didn't maintain anything, they built new. They put new drainage in underneath their track.
I'm just
They
asking
didn't ask
what's
anybody.
allowed with, if you own property, you're allowed to maintain it.
Yeah, you can maintain it.
You know, if a ditch gets filled in and somebody doesn't even know it's a ditch because it's filled in for 50 years, if you go and clean it. I'm just saying, balance it out. I haven't been up there, so I don't know.
Well,
I'm just
first of
saying.
all, because they moved dirt, they need a secret. And you can look that up in New York State's law. If you move dirt, you cut trees, you disturb the environment, you need a secret study. And they should have had they filled out their report, their zoning permit before they created this, they would have gotten one. And then they would have gotten their permit the right way. Do it any way you want to.
Well, they have a history of
Yes,
starting
they
and then
do.
asking. for
They have
permission.
a building up there that they put the building permit for, and after they built the building.
So then should it go to the planning board and not Steve?
Pardon?
Should it then go to the planning board
No, it
instead of
goes to
Steve?
Steve. It has to go to Steve first, that's his decision.
And then he should send it to you?
I don't think so.
He could, but he should send it to the town board to do a seeker study.
Well, that's why I asked if the EAF was in there, so at least,
Right.
you know, there's awareness
Yeah.
and intent to.
Yeah, it's in there. Well, I believe it's in there. Okay. Any other comments on this? I do want to take a moment, I don't think there was proper recognition. I don't know Wendy or Bill or who did this. This is really great. Wendy?
I did the form.
No, this
He
is,
did the flow, but you
This
know
is-
how hard it is to do a flow chart? I had no idea.
that's a payment. This is last month. And it was delivered at the very end of the meeting, and I really didn't get a chance to thank you because this is really useful.
Well, I kept getting lost, lost in the process. And I'm a very visual person, so I was happy to figure out the flow chart part of it.
I'm happy you figured it out. It's really good. Okay, let's move on to regular things. The minutes, you all got a copy? Additions or corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve them? Or not? I'll make a motion to approve. Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay. No police report because I think we're out of sequence with the village. So, did we get a code report? No.
But I did talk to him this afternoon. He was out of town. He was going to try to send me something. I haven't seen it and I was been here.
I've actually gotten this when we were in the
Yeah,
meeting.
well, it may have come through by now, but
Yeah. Okay.
if he sends it, I will forward it.
Okay. Okay, we don't have a copy of the monthly report because we're still working out the bugs between us and BBS. So that will be forthcoming in within the first of next week, and that'll be emailed to the board. Jan has gone, parenthetically, Jan's gone to her new hours. They're 3 days a week, Tuesday and Friday mornings, Thursday afternoon. And the hours are posted out front. And so we have high expectations that's going to work out. Although this was a little tense today, right?
It started out too good, but we'll get there. Tough time for the transition.
Yeah, oh my God.
It'll.
Do we have everything? We're going to do direct deposit for checks
If you want it,
if you want it. And so do,
everybody has a form in their packet.
okay, so if you want direct deposit, fill out that form. Okay, do we have any correspondence, Jen?
Well, most of it was in that packet. with
Yeah.
the-
Okay.
that's the- That's the most of it was.
Okay.
Yes, you have, just, the, division of the budget sent us a thing saying that they had received our application, confirming our submission to receive the ARPA money. And, they are telling us that we are eligible for
101.
101,000.
Did they say when?
I heard, it'll be the end of the summer and we will get half this year and then half next year.
Have we found anything we can spend it on yet?
We have a couple ideas. We're researching them a little further.
Charging stations, that's a big thing.
No,
No.
there's lots of money through NYSERDA for charging stations.
Downstairs or the.
Yes, that's just our share. Yep. I'm assuming the village has to apply separately. Because.
I don't know.
I think they're
I'm not sure. I know that it's on our agenda for Tuesday. for
This is
discussion.
from Association of Towns. And then all it asked for was our information. It did not ask for any information from the village. So I'm assuming you have, and I'm assuming since we were awarded the 100-some thousand, that you have to do it yourself. It had to be done, we had to have it in by July 9th.
So you didn't have to fill out what we were spending it on. Oh, good, because I was yeah, but reading through that, the National Register, not only was it confusing, but it felt like there wasn't an awful lot, real obviously, that was going to be clear. Okay, there's where. So I wondered what I missed, because when it came out that you had submitted it, I thought, on what?
All thing we had to do is say, yes, we want to receive
Got
it,
it.
or we are
Great.
refused, we do not want to receive it. And obviously, we're not gonna.
You could not apply it to that. That was the only, we had a clear cut.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things you can't use it for.
We should be able to buy some of those things in AV.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't buy a new excavator,
Can't use it for anything like that.
new building.
No.
Property. By property.
Very restricted.
Well, it was pretty much reimbursing for funds that you had missed out on, what you had lost.
Did you mention, Dan, the idea you mentioned the other day that going works?
One of the things that I found after through the Association of Counties was that one of the counties is doing it, and I believe they're doing it through their town, was to set up a plan of gift cards for the local businesses that lost a lot of revenue during the pandemic. And what you would do is you give a gift card, and then when they redeem it, the town would give you another gift card for equal value. I believe that's how it works. And so it would help. And it doesn't just have to be the restaurants, could be any of our local businesses that were just shut right down during the pandemic. So it's kind of a nice idea if we can make it work to give back to our community that lost so much. And
How many businesses do you figure in the town that could take advantage of it?
what do you think?
Is there?
You'd be surprised how many,
Is there?
yeah.
But there's
But
50 to 100 legal businesses.
Yeah, and then you have to find a way to allocate it to businesses based on something. It would get complicated.
we would just give everybody the same amount.
It's a good idea.
But we definitely need to do more research on it, but at least it was hopeful that there was a way we could spend it. That would give it back.
Right.
So we'll keep.
So
The association is one of towns is having another webinar. I believe they mentioned they'll be having another one. And they'll give us more ideas.
if
on how to
it's
spend it.
coming in over 2 years, do we have 2 years from then to spend it?
You
or
have,
how's
I
that?
believe you have till 2024 last, I think I heard to spend it. So you do have plenty of time. But, yeah.
Ongoing.
Hopefully there'll be a little more guidance now that now that they've gotten this far with actually awarding it and saying,
Right.
so hopefully there'll be more guidance. The village is in a different situation because they've got water and sewer.
Right.
So they easily can spend on that, it's for that infrastructure. We don't have that. So we'll see.
Okay, let's look at the abstracts, the general abstracts. Well, there aren't any unusual, there's not a whole lot there. Any comments on the general fund payments?
Sorry, I'm not so quick.
We're not fussy.
It was the yellow
It's readable.
paper, yeah,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
should have made it later when.
And let's
It's
do it.
on the back too.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, let's do a twofer. Let's also look at the highway abstract. Just do it in one. Nothing big. What do we have on the back here? Fuel. Okay, so milling on East Valley. Any comments on the highway abstracts? We'll get Bob to talk more about that in just a moment. Is there a motion to pay both these? Thank you, Matthew. A second? I'll second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Excellent. Bob, you are on.
Oh, I did the 210 back to Sonny's. New batteries in the 14 Mac, we all measure out the 210 Mac. Load the town lot, mold roads and mill, East Valley, Kitchener, all the brine and gravel, out of Andover, up the village, out from the excavator, Grand Lynch Road, Bishop Road. The head wall, where it's quite on Hammond Road and out the road and all.
What's the story on the brine?
Yeah, I'm up in the air. As right now, there's a law, they won't be able to get it, it's effective in January 1st. So the towns are trying to do is get, how many gallons they use a year, how many dirt roads each town has. They're setting up a spreadsheet, and they're gonna send it to the spender agreement for that. Because we kind of need it. Or we're gonna have to pay, or there's no get no brine. I can't afford, we can't afford to do calcium or anything else. I did it to one road, there right up by the guy's beds. The calcium there, when I put that tanker, was 10,000 out. That didn't even do a mile of road.
Oh, my gosh. And brine, that just cost us fuel to get it. Yeah.
I would probably, if the town board wants, send a letter to the senator and say, listen, we're gonna come up with this kind of money.
Can we provide technical reason for the concern with the burn warrant?
I didn't see anything. I presume they have some backup. but-
Yeah, they did some kind of, I can't remember, well, they tested it and they gave took it away and then they said, then they turned it around and it said, go ahead and use it.
That's what I was looking for, and that was some reason they communication was, here's why we're doing this, there was no why.
I think a lot of us down state just came up and I think because they're all paving the road, they don't think it would be, don't have to, we're all paving for all of that.
Well, Jan is saying it's because of the fracking components, whatever they fear is in that, but the one in Independence. they
And
said-
that comes up and there's water, it's diluted with water. And
It seems like if you.
they do, if there's anything bad in it, they test it every day. So imagine they stop with that fuel testing.
Some of that stuff in the Noor wells is radioactive, isn't it? Right down Pennsylvania, I mean, not,
There's a certain amount of radioactivity in all of
is there?
it. It's heavier.
I never seen those, I don't know.
What's the difference, what's the difference between, making your brine and putting down salt?
Brine's a lot cheaper.
Huh?
Brine's a lot cheaper.
Is it?
Your
Yeah,
your
salt's
salt
not
goes a lot
cheap.
further. Well, you're still using salt, but you're stretching.
It has a lot to do with water quality. It's affecting a lot of streams, rivers, conductivity of water, which increases as a result of the amount of salt in water. So that runoffs, not around our area, but.
For the brine is salt, right?
Right, but it tends to leach out a lot easier than salt.
Oh, does it?
The better the ditches, the better the runoff, the quicker it gets to the rivers.
Get it down to Susquehanna quick. So, what did you have to do with the 210 NAC?
Mission sensors and exhaust manifold, all kind of one shot deal.
The only thing the $450.
Job is just for that sensor. He said the truck's ready. I said, did you get the manifold?
That'd be another bill.
It'd be another bill. Cause he's behind. So
We're gonna be on 100 for that truck.
I tried to talk about it. See, if you don't talk about it, nothing happens. But I think Bill Jinks said something about it.
These flowers out front. Should put that truck right behind them.
I did.
We get more money and we'll buy another truck.
Anything else for Bob? Is John back? What's the story there?
I just waiting, see what happens.
I see that Dwight Kenya is on. Dwight, do you have anything you want to say? Maybe did you bring on John Eddie this year?
Not yet, I haven't. But I get more kind of going rain every other day.
Hi Dan, this is Dwight. I guess I just wanted to check to see if there was any follow-up items from the discussion with Delaware Solar.
I don't think so. I think we accomplished everything we intended to, and Fred Sinclair is going to send some information to me that, or he already has, that I'm going to forward to Labella with regard to electrical issues, and I think that'll satisfy him. So I think we're in good shape. Sean was here, and everything seemed to go well.
Yep. Okay. No, Sean and Kathy certainly know how to handle the review of that. So great. My apologies as we went into executive session in my other meeting tonight, so it's a little later than I thought.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Dwight.
No problem.
We have a
Anytime.
question. Hang on, Dwight.
Sure.
Like going to outline a road use law for us as well as the battery storage.
Yes.
Okay, can I make a suggestion, Bob? Put together the different issues you want in your road use law, so they can be included in his law. We'll do it once and get it right.
Yeah, good.
Well, is this just gonna cover this is going for now, or are you?
I think it's townwide.
No,
Townwide.
not like.
We have somewhere on file the example laws that we looked at a couple of years ago.
Got a whole file on
Yeah.
So I think I missed one part of the question. So was the question whether you wanted to include the road use law with the battery storage law? Was that the question?
If you were going to develop a road use law similar to the battery storage law.
Mm-hmm.
I see the battery storage law being coupled up with our solar law and our road
Correct.
use law is a separate issue.
I would agree with that. Yep. Yeah, and if only, you know, I think it's important from a timing standpoint to get the battery law on the books, just because of the proposal to have you know, battery storage with the large solar project. You know, I don't expect that application to be for a few months, but it would be good to get the battery part of it on the book, so to speak. But I mean, certainly you could have the road use and the battery law be in parallel but separate. You know, just following similar paths.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to getting that, and the planning board is gonna look at the battery storage law next week.
Oh,
I
great.
think, so.
Okay, great. And I'd be happy to walk that through with them if they're doing that in a meeting or something like that. And, you know, if there's some you know, background I can provide or something like that, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay, well, I've sent copies to all of the planning board members of your proposed law. And hopefully they will have read it by Tuesday night so that we can discuss it. Our meeting will be at 7 p.m. and with Fred Sinclair working from home, we'll arrange to have a Zoom meeting.
Okay. Well, I'd be happy to sit in if that would be helpful. So, and I think, like I said, I think in my my note to Dan with that, that is similar to one that I worked on with a team from the town of Rose up in Wayne County, which I think has kind of similar issues. And you know, we actually went through quite a detailed review when we came up with that. So you know, I think it's kind of a good, you know, foundation perhaps for you to start with for yours.
Hey, Dwight, I've got a question for you on another topic.
Sure.
On the pilot, what is the percentage split? When I talked to Craig Clark, he was saying that the pilot is based on the relative tax rates between the county and the school district and the town. But I'm wondering, in terms of percentages, do you know off the top of your head how that works out?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is necessarily for Allegheny County, because it's always a little bit different from county to county. My experience, it's been in the 20% range for the towns. But I guess if it would be kind of as it would show on your tax bill, as you know, say for an individual residence, how that split goes out, it would be similar to that. Now the bit with their let's call it their new policy that they had a hearing on last night. I spoke with Craig yesterday about it, and it's really just formalizing what they were already doing. But what Allegheny does is they essentially require the developer to enter into a community host agreement with the towns that is separate from the pilot. And that's where the town gets, let's say, their real share of the overall pot. And the way their policy is worded, they have a target of $5,000 per megawatt in total between the pilot and the host agreement. The pilot is 2,500. So the town, in essence, would have the host agreement, which would be also another 2,500, plus they would get their share of the pilot. So theoretically, of the total pie, the town would be in the, I would say 60% range, depending what your actual allocation is on the pilot.
Yeah, if we got 20% of half the 5,000, plus we got 2,500, that'd be 3,000, that'd be 60% of the whole pie, so.
Yep, if it's 20, and I think I've seen it range from like 15 to 23, depending on the county, in the school district. But yeah, I think that's a good ballpark number. So
now, when they finally determine, what the final pilot is, do we need to have any representation in such a meeting, or we just take it on faith that they're going to do it this way?
You actually have a couple of, you have control in a couple of ways. One, they have a public hearing on it. Two, they need your consent to the pilot. Three, they also need the seeker review. They rely on your seeker review in order to award the pilot. So, I mean, you're in the loop on all of that. And as Craig explained how they've done it procedurally, is they don't award the pilot until the host agreement is in place.
Okay.
So they've been using that as a condition precedent to the approval of the pilot itself. It's actually, I would say, of the counties I've worked with, it's the one I think that's been most open to the towns, ensuring the towns have that kind of percentage, at least kind of in practice. Some of the others are not as generous to the towns at all. I mean, I would say Steuben is pretty much takes the whole amount for their pilot. And they say if the towns can negotiate something, they're free to do so, but they don't really support it the way that Allegheny appears to be doing. At least that's been my experience. That was my experience with the one in Burns that was approved. I think that was finally approved around February of this year, that one. And it was a similar size project.
So do you represent us in all those meetings?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Yes, if you would, of course, if you'd like me to, but yes, I would. That's part of what I was planning on doing.
Okay, good. Anything else, Dwight?
And I think there's just speaking with Craig, there's quite a few projects around. I almost want to say he said 13 or 14. So there's quite a bit of precedent for this approach. So for them to deviate from it would be quite a change.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Very good.
All right, thanks, Dwight.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Okay. Okay, we did the bills. Bill talk. I just got a couple things. Ben wanted to present some options for Zoom material. What do you have, Ben?
Well, you start with the simple stuff. The TV is an easy decision to make, I think, just projectors, obviously. So I'll go ahead and I think if the board approves $600 to $800 for a 70-inch TV, it seems to be going right with all the tech that we need to connect to it, no matter what we decide with what else I have to throw at you. A TV and a camera, a wide angle camera that we could hopefully place permanently in a spot that covers the room better. Camera's $50 for something like that one. And if it's positioned more like over here in the corner where you shoot the room, I think it works. As I mentioned last time, I think we talked, the fancy ones that follow the people speaking are like $1,000 and up. So if we get our federal funding, we'll go buy somehow, but, until then, I think, something like this would work. What else I wanted to toss out there was, making it so that any one of us theoretically can come in here and set this thing up. It doesn't have to be a bunch of my gear next to the town's gear. We talked about maybe connecting it to Bobby's computer back there, which could work. But for a few reasons, it wouldn't be ideal. Someone would have to sit back there at the computer to run the Zoom controls. Because it's a desktop, it would have to be, at least to the TV, it would have to be hardwired across the room to the TV. If we got, I looked into like a Chromebook, like a really simple laptop. You can get them for $200, and that could be the town's, device to sit down here, and any one of us could flip it open and you can set up, connect it to Zoom, connect it to the TV, and the camera and the speaker. So I think that might be a way to go if the board agrees. I think the only other thing we talked about maybe improve. Unfortunately, the standard Bluetooth speakers like that one are not able to be daisy chained together to be used in a single Zoom session. So there are fancier ones out there, but again, along the lines of the fancy conference room cameras, they're fairly pricey, like $800 to $1,000. So if we can make this speaker work for the short term, I think I would propose that we go ahead with the TV and the camera, and I'll find us a Chromebook, and that would really free us up for, the planning board could use that setup. It would be here. Anybody could use it, and for over $1,000, I think we have a decent setup, and then we can decide on whether the camera and the speaker are worth further investment. So, that's my pitch. Oh, and the Zoom, I mentioned to you, Dan, I think getting the town Zoom account, so that I'm not using my personal Zoom account, and that's $50 or something. I can look it up again. It's fairly immaterial.
Can you daisy chain two cameras together?
I don't think so. I can look into that, but
Not critical, but I was just
I think Zoom would be the limiting factor there. It can't, I have two cameras here right now, and at least with the Zoom client that I have, it doesn't allow you to pick one at a time. So
I would think the speaker might be a more important upgrade than the camera. If we choose between one or the other.
It seemed to work okay tonight, didn't it?
If they heard us, that
Us.
was.
I went back and sort of reread the reviews on that one, and then for the price, it was $120, somewhere in the range. It gets really good reviews for a room this size. It's supposed to be, capable of picking up voices as long as people speak fairly clearly.
If they ask the people,
Yeah, it does have buttons on it. You can turn it down.
One observation I have regarding Chromebooks is they're chronically underpowered. Are you sure that a Chromebook can be able to handle the Bluetooth connectivity, speaker, and everything, and not be? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read up on it some more. Yeah, they're pretty bare bones.
Yeah.
Processing power and stuff, but I'll read up on it.
the minutes on your personal account, can they be transferred over to the town account when we get it?
Yeah, so everything that I record, I download and upload to YouTube, and then the town of the YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
And that's who knew? That's how I post it to the website instead of, and that was Jason's suggestion actually. Because instead of storing all that video on the town website, we let Google hold on to it.
And that doesn't cost anything to do that, right?
So that's typically how.
I have a comment. And that from home here, the different voices. Some people speak very low as though they're just, talking in a conversation and you can't hear them and they're garbled. Other voices come through quite well. And I'm not sure you can overall compensate for that, but a good microphone is going to be the key. And I suspect that the acoustics in that room are playing a little bit, but I miss a lot of what is being said, especially from the peanut gallery, because you just can't hear it. It's garbled. And if you're relying on the recordings, paying attention to the microphone is going to be a key component of the system. I also have gotten dropped from connection 3 times during this session. And then it spools through and then comes back and connects me again miraculously. So I don't know what's happening there, but it's the first time that has happened. And this is probably the 3rd or 4th time I've zoomed in. But tonight I was getting dropped and, blank screen, and then it would spool and come back again. So I don't know what was happening there, but.
Yeah, I did see twice it showed your connection is unstable, probably something with the town's internet connection. Yeah, we researched that one a little bit too, Dan and I, and unfortunately, to upgrade even just a little bit, it's fairly expensive. Spectrum. If it becomes a chronic problem, we'll have to do something about it.
Do we have an option with Armstrong?
No, I think it's just.
Armstrong's only in the areas that don't have
Spectrum
spectrum.
is, Armstrong is not allowed.
No, not true. Not true at all. My brother just gave up Spectrum for Armstrong, and we're about to. Yeah. And in fact, Armstrong's supposed to be through what they call the underserved areas of the state.
I think their state money has been used up, and now they're free to.
And then they were gonna free to compete.
They're free to compete. Right, yeah.
Yeah, if you're on the outskirts, like you guys are up on, that, I think they were allowed some overages, but in the, like up through the village and some of the main drags, they weren't given.
Is
that correct?
They had it down the village, but I think they're.
Pretty small. Wow.
That's not
village,
that's
all.
It's because we're so far from the
No,
water.
because they had to go around
It's
it.
in my
Yeah,
office.
we got it.
It's part of the
Is that why?
I've got it.
Can you get a booster?
Well,
Yeah.
that's what we should, because Bob is
Yeah,
considered
wow,
now,
we
sounds
see the,
terrible.
see the fiber.
And then
I know what
what I
boxes
would do
look
is
like.
get a.
Take a look at the pole.
Look at that.
We get a booster from almost
Seven of
my
Yeah,
office.
Speed right now.
You can't hook up the
Get
village.
some
Terrible.
kind of booster from,
The upload,
because it's in my office, the
download,
box.
and upload.
That's part of the
I
problem.
think we've only got
I get a
8. That's what it is. That's
pole,
all we get.
We do that.
three bars.
Oh, you hear- oh, you're-
I think outside the walk around, see where the signals.
I think we got 8.
That's not good.
Pretty good, put down the hall, especially when the door's open.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's on the hall.
Kansas has got full service.
We might be able
Yeah, I
to
don't-
consider
I don't
it
think-
next year, all this. soils.
Well,
Staying way over the shop, I can't pick it up.
it's the block building too that has something to do with it.
You got a metal roof on this?
Metal trusses, remember.
And there's a lot of interference. You can't even get a radio channel.
Sounds like good recommendations. Dan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd see Armstrong. See if you can get Armstrong.
Yeah, I can, I didn't look because I assumed that they didn't come down Shaw Road. But I don't know if
They'd have to cables all through this.
if they're, boxes of like, we can check on the website.
They gotta give it to us for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna price it just the way Spectrum does.
I don't know, they might be a little more.
Anything they trust, nice, we love to put the emergency
No,
station
that
in.
was free.
Oh, we do? Such a slow speed though,
Yeah.
not much.
I don't have any problem in my office. I've never had a problem with internet. 6340.
Okay, cannabis. Wendy wanted to talk about cannabis.
Just
Boy,
think-
she's been happy with
Bus.
Just thinking ahead, if the decision is going to be to opt out, meaning there are 9 different licenses, 2 of them, the town has anything to say about. And the 2 that we have the ability to have an answer about for us is retail dispensaries and on-site consumption places. What do you mean? Lounges, okay, I don't remember what the last word was. And those are the only 2. All of the others, we have nothing to say about. But if we do nothing, we will have, those will be allowed in our town. I don't have an agenda, but if we're going to opt out and have a say, that law has to be in place by the 31st of December. And so if you start backing up with public hearings, and I just wanted to say, I think we need to start thinking about it. And it's a real double-edged sword. I mean, part of me, I actually have some strong feelings, but I don't have an agenda that I think we should be taking the town, but you know, there's tax revenue. So you can't just say, not in my town, not in my backyard, because there's tax revenue. And it is subject to a permissive referendum, which means that if we say we don't want it and the residents of the town say, we do, we want the tax revenue, then it goes to a referendum, obviously. But I just thought we needed to start talking about it just based on time frame.
Anybody want to say anything about
So you
it?
said that if we do nothing, it's gonna happen.
If we do nothing, there will be retail dispensaries and on-site consumption lounges allowed in the town of Elton.
Just a point of fact, I was in this discussion with someone and I was wondering what the license would be to have a retail dispensary.
To get them from the state.
Right, and I was looking up to get a medical dispensary now, it's a $10,000 application and a $200,000 license. And I'm assuming that for recreational, it would probably be similar. I don't know.
Very likely.
So that's.
How much does a license cost?
$200,000.
They
But
make a lot of money.
the presumption is you're gonna make some money. But, so I have no idea how that.
How is it taxed?
It's the sales tax of 13%.
And
And 9 of it goes somewhere else,
to the state,
and 4%
4%
is
comes to
split.
the county and 3% of that, or 3 out of those 4% are passed through to the locale, county keeps 1.
But when you have a town with a village,
Maybe not.
they split it.
I think I thought we got half.
Yeah, we get half of the 3.
Well, I thought it was half of the 4.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
what I read.
Okay, so, but the
I thought
point
we
is,
got 2%.
like if the village has the dispensary and we don't, we get half of their 4%. If we have it and they don't, they get half of our 4%. That's the way I understand it.
Does that come back as funding for your police departments and stuff?
I don't know how, I don't know if it's restricted, I don't know how it comes
Does it
back.
ever come back?
Well, that's also a good question.
Because it all goes to the state to begin
I
with.
don't think it's restricted.
I've heard that.
I don't think it's
General fund. But it is sales tax, so we get whatever the state gives us.
Exactly.
Again,
If it were allowed, then towns or municipalities are encouraged to control it through zoning. So for example, were we to not opt out, we could still take the tack of saying, okay, retail dispensaries would be limited to the business district. No, so it ties back into zoning. Special use permits and zoning.
And we can also regulate hours of operation.
You can, but you can't make it so restrictive that precludes them, functionally precludes them from doing business. You can't say it can only be open from 10 to 11 on Saturday morning.
an old Buffalo crush site would be a good spot for a dispensary.
You just lounge out in the whole acreage.
We can lock the gate, not let them out.
So in terms of,
I'd like to comment if I might. You know, they used to call the places that that allow usage, they used to call them dens. And it's a very nasty image of somebody going to a specific spot, getting stoned. And then what are they going to do? Go out and get in their car and drive somewhere? No, I think that having a store like a liquor store and the similarly run with hours like a liquor store is one thing. You get your intoxicant, you go home and you do it after you leave the store. But if the town is going to allow for a opium den like pot den that somebody's going to start up in the house next door to me, I object to that. And I think that that's a really, really slippery slope. So that aspect of it, I would be against having a place where people just can go and get stoned. And in a town with 7,000 students, you don't want to do that.
well, that's a good point. I mean,
The dorm's full.
it'd be like a bar. It'd be like a bar, right? You go get a drink and you get drunk and stumble home.
You can't use it on college campuses.
Absolutely can't be
You can't
used.
use it on college campuses.
So they're gonna
You
be
can't?
off the campus out.
All over the village.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point.
It's not allowed in the on the campus.
It's not allowed, doesn't mean it doesn't get.
Well, I
there.
understand
It's
that.
allowed.
It is a law.
Now, maybe they'll change it. I doubt they'll change that.
It is a good point, though. This is not a pedestrian town. There's very few places that they could imbibe, for lack of
And walk
partake,
home.
and then walk home.
Are there any plans in the village, Jim, to have a
Tuesday night on the agenda.
Well, it's worth thinking about.
And I think we should be asking people.
So there's
I think we
separate-
should be encouraging.
I've been talking to people, of course, my people are not a cross section of the town,
Right.
but I haven't had anybody come up to me and say, they'll say, I'm not in favor of marijuana, but if it's legal, we might as well take the money. That's basically what I'm hearing. But now Fred raises a good point as to whether or not you want to have it consumed there, but then that's what you have at bars. Is it going to be any worse? They won't be fighting, they'll just be falling down on the sidewalk.
Well, it's two different licenses. They're not necessarily entwined, but
Oh, they are?
there's the dispensing license and the on-site consumption license.
All right.
And they're also our ability to zone off their site.
Yes.
You could say, yeah, you want.
One, the other, yes.
Has there been any comment that you've seen regarding a bar with a liquor license? Are they going to prevent those liquor license establishments from also getting a on-site use permit for marijuana?
Yeah.
Well, question. I don't-
That could turn, I mean, that could turn into some real mess,
Yeah.
you know? So might be something we want to consider too. If the state's going to allow that and you don't want that mess, you might, I don't know. Might not be able to do anything about it if the state allows it. I don't know.
The increased tax revenue could quickly get used up in increased police costs.
Well, you think about it in terms of number of ambulance calls, number of police calls, additional police officers, because all can't do it all. And then liabilities, if they get into an accident on our roads.
Well, it's already been historically shown that this is all true, because when they, in the West Coast, California, whatever it is, Colorado, when they legalized it, they had that same problem.
Well, I have two brothers that live in Colorado. One's a judge and one was a police officer for 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
One of the reasons he retired was because the marijuana usage out there was getting so prolific and you can't stop them. the police departments are issued orders not to stop them for suspected drug driving.
Oh, yeah?
If there's an accident and you smell marijuana in the car, then you take them into custody. But you don't pull them over for a suspected drug use. And their drug dogs are all retired now because if they detect heroin in the trunk of a car and it turns out that there's some marijuana in there as well, so all the drug dealers are throwing a bag of marijuana in the trunk. Because once the dog sniffs, who's to say it wasn't marijuana instead of heroin?
Another complication.
One I would have is sort of devil's advocate is thinking back on when Alfred was a dry town and everybody drove to Hornell to get. Right. Well, yeah, drink. Oh, yes. That could happen in this case too, you know, if we decided to mix it, then they, in a dispensary or some other joint opens in Hornell.
Yeah, you're not gonna eliminate it. The issue is what's the best way to control it.
Right.
And protect the town.
Or protect the town from it.
And I guess the presumption is we would have more marijuana use than we have now. Do we know that's going to be the case?
I doubt it.
I assume so,
I
but do we
believe
know?
so,
that?
only because I just spent a couple days with my 30-year-old son and he's a teacher. And the stories he was telling about, it's just everywhere now. He was really stunned how much more he's seen in the last.
In New York State?
Yeah. That's what I think into.
In Sydney, New York.
Sydney, New
which
York,
are about,
the size of Canasteo.
I'm gonna say it's about what, 3,200 people?
So they're happy.
So.
I just thought we needed to start talking about it, and somehow, in my opinion, the one thing I would advocate for is, I think we need to get people talking to us. You know, I don't know how you put the question out there, how you start the dialogue, but we haven't got a lot of time, and I really feel like we need, yeah, that's why I said, can we talk about it? I really feel we need to start taking the temperature of the community to have a guess as to what the right thing is gonna be to do or not to do.
Well, the community includes the town students. I mean, they're registered voters, huh?
That's the village.
No, they live in more views in your village.
They're the villages in the town.
They are on campus.
They're in our town. They all live on campus.
They're still registered as voters for the town of Alfred or the village of Alfred. Well,
Depending on where they live, yeah.
Yeah, they're on our census.
yes,
Yes, they are.
yeah.
So I guess we should be thinking about this in terms of public safety, policing, whether there's more. I mean, the presumption is that if you have a dispensary, you're going to have more marijuana. I don't know if that's true. More marijuana use. It seems logical, but is that true? I don't
It's
know.
so expensive, there's usually a really healthy black market, at least with Colorado as the example.
It's about 25% cheaper to buy it from the black market. The guy on the street corner than it is to go
Yeah,
to
the
the
dispensary
dispensary.
is so expensive in the dispensaries.
Wonder why.
I would,
Yeah.
$200,000 application fee.
Well, and the prices, the per ounce prices, is just so expensive.
would that trend the same way alcohol did after they repealed prohibition? But now most people go to the liquor store. They don't go on the corner and buy White Lightning from some guy. So it may, gravitate toward that, but initially, black market could be there. I don't know. Glad you raised
I'm
this issue.
sorry I brought it up, but I don't.
I think the law also says that you're allowed to grow a certain amount per person.
That's true.
I don't know how many plants, 8 plants or something like that per year.
That's
I don't know how much that is. I mean, I don't know what a plant constitutes, but
Would it behoove us by next month to actually have the law in front of us, so we're not guessing, so we kind of know what the state's doing? Is that information out there?
It's out there, yeah.
I mean, Wendy pretty well summed it up, that there's a whole bunch of stuff and we have options on two things, and it's allowing or disallowing dispensaries and consumption. And then within that zoning.
Well, maybe for next month, maybe Jan, you want to get a printout of the law, put it in everybody's folder?
Did I get your email address this time? Because if I did, I don't know what I did with it.
And then, I don't know if I forwarded it or if it already went to you guys, but I got something from Paul Griffith having to do with, some group that evidently is opposed to, the dispensaries. And I'll forward that to you guys.
Yeah, it's, what's the name of that group? It was-
Oh, yeah, you did.
it's a- Yeah, you did. It's a political group.
Yeah, yeah. They
It
didn't,
wasn't local though.
no, it wasn't local, and I don't think they had a lot of facts in it, but
Yeah.
Prohibition or something like that.
yeah, something.
The sheriff's associations and the state police.
They didn't take, I don't think they took.
Towns, anybody?
I haven't heard any. Anything I've been getting, I try to forward to you. That
Like
one-
talking about control, it would be good to get an idea of how other towns around us are thinking about it. That's gonna be a factor.
Sure is. It's been driving to Hornell and Alfred was wrong.
Well, let's put that on the agenda for next
So
week.
actually, we went drove down.
Okay, any other comments on that? Just a point of information, if you read the Alfred Sun. There is a suit that I'd heard of, and Borello is joining that suit against the Office of Renewable Energy Siting under 94C. I talked to Dwight about it. He knows this group of attorneys is bringing the suit. I guess that's their bag to do that kind of thing. He's fairly, he thinks the odds are fairly low that it'll go anywhere, but there is a suit against this legislation because it violates home rule.
I would agree with that.
But this is, yeah, repeal or modify or something. So I mean, it's a possibility that the big 100 megawatt thing would never happen. If this would go through,
Or they would change their application.
they would,
That's where they-
well, who knows, but it's out there. Okay, Jan, you have anything to report?
Nope.
Anything from the county that's germane to us?
No, we're actually gonna get ready to work on budgets, so. Like in the next month, probably or less. The county actually has hired a consulting firm to determine how the money can be spent, because obviously the county is getting over $9 million. And I'm picking up bits and pieces from that when that comes out, that maybe will help us also determine how we can spend it. We'll see.
When we, Halsey Consulting to, consult for us, perhaps,
Okay, is there anything else to come before the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Is there a second? Thank you, Peter. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
right on time. I should have made you wait 30 seconds.
So at this point, the planning board or DDA. Personal devices.
Thanks for coming, Jim.